Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for July 11th, 2018. We've got two items on our agenda this evening. The first is 69 Washington Avenue, and this is for a proposal to construct a mudroom at the rear of the home, and this is for a variance of approximately 2 inches. It's a side yard variance where 10 feet are needed and 9 feet 10 inches are provided according to the plans. Who will be heard on this application? If you'd come up to the little podium and please speak into the microphone so that people in the audience can hear. Thank you.
My name is Heike Schneider. I'm the architect for 69 Washington Avenue. My client is here as well. So, yeah, unfortunately, I forgot my easel, but I have the copy here.
Now we've got all the plans.
Got the plans as well, right? So, yes, the main issue with this house, it's a beautiful house. It has 2 front yards. So one is Washington Avenue and the other one is Maple Street. So the main entrance is off Washington Avenue, but the driveway is on Maple Street, which meant that my clients always had to use the garage as an entrance to come to their first floor, which is a beautiful space. So now we're trying to resolve that issue in creating a foyer and mudroom on top of the existing storage shed, which is not so spiky to begin with, but it serves very perfectly as a foundation for the foyer. And also we're creating a deck. The deck, basically, so you have several levels. You step from the driveway up to the deck, and the deck is right above the AC compressors, and then from the deck, a couple more steps into the foyer. The foyer is small, it's the same size as the storage shed. It is 10 foot 10 by 9 feet, and it's really just a small way of coming into a living space and using it as a mudroom or a small foyer.
Right, and the reason for asking for the variance is to keep the line of the house consistent instead of moving it in 2 inches.
Yes, and that would have been really difficult because it's all pre-existing, right?
Yes.
And the storage shed is built, it's a CMU, and it's a really solid storage shed, which serves perfectly as a foundation, but if you then would step it in, that just doesn't, it wouldn't make
Right,
sense.
the appearance is unsightly.
Yes. So it's pre-existing, and we're hoping that, this is not an issue.
Anyone have any questions on this?
I have no questions.
Is there anyone in the, else who'd like to be heard on this application? I move to close.
Second.
I move that the application be granted according to the plan submitted.
I just want to say, in the time I've been on the zoning board, which is like a while, I'm pretty sure this is the smallest variance we've ever been requested to. 2 inches.
So congratulations. All in favor? Aye. Good luck to you.
Thank you. It's also my smallest.
If it was 1 more inch, I think. yeah, we would have really. They would have pushed us over the edge.
Oh, and Chair, before I forget. Liz needs you to get your signature on something before you go. Not now, but I'll forget it later, and so will everyone else who's supposed to.
Okay.
The next item on our app. Right, I just handed it off. Exactly.
Am I buying some property in
No, I don't think so.
downtown area?
The next item is a continuation of an application on Briery and Hilldale Road. And before the applicant starts, I will say Mr. Gambos and I both missed the last meeting when the initial presentation was heard. We have reviewed the materials and we've watched the video and listened to the extent possible. so that we both feel caught up. If you've got objections to us being here tonight and potentially making a decision, please let us know now.
No, I'm Adam Whitestein, the attorney for the applicant, Hopkins, Tortorella, and Whitestein. I have no objection.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Whitestein. Since I missed last time, what do you think is the best way to pick up here? Should we pick up with the traffic study, hit other issues? Do the traffic study first, and then, I'd like to circle back to the size of the property.
I think the traffic study, first, since we left off with the applicant, I assume
Yeah.
the applicant's been provided with a copy of the study, and begin there, and I don't know if you want to make comments about it, Mr. Chairman, or
You know,
want to see.
I'm kind of new to traffic studies. I'm not sure I understand much beyond the basics.
John, I think we have a traffic study.
Well, first, I guess I would ask to make sure the applicant has received the study, and if you have any comments to it, and I'm not sure if the public has had an opportunity to review it, but we can certainly comment as to its conclusions.
We received it unfortunately this morning, so we have certainly reviewed it. Our traffic consultant is not here, is not in a position to analyze it. There is, the issue at the end of the day is site distance. It's not generation of traffic by the site, but it's a single family home. And there are different conclusions as to site distance. I am not a traffic expert, but when we reviewed it, and I reviewed it with the principal and my client, Brian Zappi, who's a licensed professional engineer, our view is that there are recommendations that are made at the end of this study to alleviate potentially existing conditions and impacts that we may have. And our client is willing to do the signage and the lining of the pavement markings that were addressed in that study, including stop sign on Briary, stop sign on Kildale being added, yield sign, and markings that will eliminate vehicles looking in. I'm a lawyer, I'm not a traffic consultant. Brian can speak to it, but we believe they will eliminate the site distance issues if implemented.
Well,
My client is willing to.
I'm assuming that the signage is really up to the village, though. I think the part that is within your power to address is the siting of the property of the house on the property.
You are correct, although I think it would be within your authority to condition the variance on us getting approval from the village to do the work. And I think it would probably be DPW, but I would have to look at that.
Right. I think that's a nice offer, but it would almost seem to me that, if it's a safety issue for the village, with or without the house, the village should be picking that up.
But I think Mr. Gutman's point, though, is well taken. The signage treatment is secondary to the line of sight issue. The line of sight issue is dependent on the areas that are in your control area, the size of the house and the placement of the house. And what can you do in terms of the size of the house and the placement of the house to lessen the impact of what the signage is there to support, the ability to see and be safe.
Just before you address, and I give you an opportunity absolutely to address the comment, I just want to make sure that the public is aware of what the conclusions were of the report, and we're addressing the same issues. So there was a different conclusion regarding the required stopping site distances. So as I read the report, the consultant that was retained through the village said using its recorded data, which was a larger database, the required SSD, that's the stopping site distances, equals 186 feet, and the ISD would equal 287 feet, but the SSD value, considers the downward grade of the Briary Road toward Hillsdale, but the SSD value was what was, the most important. And then based upon that SSD value, which was higher than your consultant had, They had really five options that they suggested. One was relocating the structure to the north and east to improve sight lines, resize the structure to improve sight lines, just what I think this board would like to hear about those first two. The third was install stop sign control on Briary Road, southbound approach. The fourth was convert the Hilldale Road westbound approach at Briary Road to yield control and place stop sign control on the Briary Road northbound approach to the Hilldale Road eastbound intersection. Another was to do options 3 and 4, and then the 6th provide the additional pavement markings. So you've addressed, I think, the stop sign or yield sign and the pavement markings, but I assume my fellow board members are interested in the first two, what your position is regarding relocating the structure to the north and east to improve the sight line, and then installing resizing the structure to improve the sight line.
May I, just based on my rudimentary, before I get to the second question yet, my rudimentary understanding, and Brian can testify to it as a PE, the sightline issue is concerned with the fact of the travel speed down Briary Road going south, so that somebody coming out of Hilldale and out of the driveway has issues. They can't, the car coming down Briary can't see the car coming out of Hilldale quick enough to stop safely. That's what the SSD is. If there is a stop sign there, my understanding is that it disappears because they have to stop anyway. So the sight distance becomes a much less. Again, I am a lawyer. If you want to hear from Brian or at a future meeting from our traffic engineer, certainly do that. Yeah, but I'm the wrong one to say.
I'm certainly willing to hear from anybody.
So basically, the concern would be traveling westbound on Hilldale, heading towards that intersection. By putting a stop sign in the south, heading southbound from Briary, you basically would be looking at an object 14.5 feet back, from that stop sign to the driver's eye. So, and then, now to just briefly touch upon your other two positions as far as relocating the house. So, basically, we didn't really see that as the desirable option from our standpoint, because we want to have a marketable home to possibly do a resell to some future homeowner. And by shrinking that size of that home, we just think it's going to be slightly less desirable, especially infringing on some of the side yard and rear yard setbacks.
Could I ask how you decided on a 2,400 square foot home in this neighborhood?
Just based on, I believe we did shrink down the size of the home since one of the previous meetings, to about 2,200 square feet.
I didn't catch that.
I believe we did shrink down the size of the home to about 2,200 square feet. Just kind of based on several of the other homes in the area, it is more on the larger size. What we feel would be more desirable based on recent comps.
Well, I don't know about the comps that you used, but back around year end, I went on Zillow and I looked at houses for sale and houses that had recently sold, and this morning saw an additional house that had come on the market. And the average of all of them is that the square footage of the house is about 28% of the square footage of the lot. Some of the lots are, well, all of the lots are larger than your house. Some substantially larger. If you look at the way this development was cut up once upon a time, there were many more parcels than became homes. People bought 2 lots because they were on the smallish side, and so to be able to build what they wanted, they bought 2 lots. This one is one small lot remaining, and I guess the point of view that I have, from having put together this document, which I gave to you guys and I gave to the board this evening, It seems to me that this lot really demands a small house because it should be in proportion to the other houses in the neighborhood. And that's nowhere near 2,400 or 2,200 square feet.
So you want me to go off these numbers here? I guess to come back with a similar
You can go off whatever numbers you think represent a house that fits in with the neighborhood. You know, I didn't hire a consultant to do any of this work. All I know is that sightlines in this property are critical. And the more that's in the way, the less likely it is that we can approve. You know, we can't approve a large house in this on this piece of property that obstructs safety sightlines. You know, that much we know for sure. And you know, as an applicant, you know, it's your job to come up with a project that we potentially could approve. You know, because we can't approve something that is going to be out of character with this neighborhood. You know, if you look at corner lots, you know, you look at the exhibits that you provided. Look at the corner lots. The corner lots all have the houses set back a great deal from the street. You know, this one hasn't been built yet, but you know, that's what would have to happen here. You know, and to set it back, by definition on this lot, it has to be a smaller house. You know, and that's kind of a reality with, you know, with this neighborhood. You know, the other thing that, you know, is very important to me is, you know, this house is really on two streets. You know, call it the front or the side yard, whatever you want, but the portion of your house that faces Briary on the plans is, I think it's 12 feet 6 inches from Briary. Well, that's not in keeping with any house up and down Briary. You know, to my eye, you know, and I did some of the stuff on Google Earth where you can do some line measurements. They're all 25 feet. You know, so those are the things that you should be working with. 25 feet back from Briary. And you know, if you have to encroach a little bit, you know, we're willing to listen to reasonable plans, but they have to be reasonable, you know, with regard to size and safety.
Okay, thank you. We just felt that if that stop sign was there, that would completely eliminate the site distance issue. But now that we know the board's position, we'll take another look at these plans and see if there's something else.
Just if I may be heard, I mean, that
Sure.
would be one of the things our traffic consultant would look at, presumably what impact reducing the house size would have on site distance. I mean, I don't know, standing here, I'm not a designer, I don't pretend to be. There's only so
Well,
much that can be done. As to setback, number one, I think this, you're ultimately the ones who are going to determine impact on community character. I'm not sure that a deviation from, for example, from the 28% you cited means that it has a real impact on community character. If it's grossly out of proportion, that's one thing. We were handed this, and this isn't meant to be denigrated tonight. By your own admission, it's not scientific. We'll take it back. We'll look at it. We'll try to do a more scientific analysis.
Sure, if you want to present different numbers, absolutely.
My recollection is we looked at this, unfortunately, we started this better part of a year ago, and most of the houses were smaller, but there were some larger ones. It was probably towards the larger end. But it was not.
There are some larger houses, but they are on larger parcels.
Okay, and then the second issue that you raised is probably the more problematic one, which is because of the configuration of the lot, and your zoning allows us to choose what's the front yard and the side yard setback. Because of the other setback, it really is hard, even if you play with the shape of the house, to have any kind of appreciably bigger setback off Briary. It would be very difficult to deal with.
I think for a 2,400 square foot house, that
For-
might be
right.
true, but for a smaller house, and I think that, to Chairman's point, the majority of the houses in this area are actually well under 2,000 square feet. So this is, to some extent, this is self-inflicted, and I think that there are other ways for for the owner to get benefit out of the lot, right? As opposed to a 2,400 square foot house, so, or a 2,200 square foot house. So this is actually a lot size issue. It's not actually a setback issue. Traffic is an issue. It's not the only issue.
Right.
We're focusing on it because the safety issue is probably the thing that has caused the neighbors the greatest concern. So not for nothing. It's important, but I think there are other issues at play.
Yeah, I would just think that, but the site safety issue, I think, based on the data that we have, it is a critical issue, regardless of what the community thinks.
Yeah.
So I think from our
Absolutely.
consideration, the site distance and alleviating that issue is, to me, the most important issue for us to deal with. But a way to deal with it is by resizing the house and relocating it.
And I think in light of this report we received today, and in light of what we've heard from the board tonight, I think it's something we're not prepared to address tonight, but we've heard it and we will address it. I hope you would agree it wouldn't serve any useful purpose. I spoke too long last time about the various factors and the other issues. I'm not saying traffic, site distance is the only issue, but I'm not sure it would serve any useful purpose to go on to other items. They were beat up pretty well last time. They may be again in the future, but as you indicated, it sounds like size and site distance are the threshold questions.
Yeah, I think that's right, just so that they don't come up as a surprise. I mean, one of the things I thought about, was because sight lines are important, that some kind of a restriction in terms of plantings, that shouldn't grow more than a foot, in height. No fences that would be in the critical paths, and things like that, that would go with the property, because this is and it should just be all encompassing. I don't think that would affect what you would come back to us with, but I just wanted to put that out on the table, as something that should be addressed when we finally tie this together.
But I want to be clear. It's not only size and sight distance. That's two of at least three things that I think are important. The other third is the placement. It goes back to the issue of where do you site the house on the property, both with respect to the safety issues, but also with the compatibility with the character of the neighborhood. The distance from the curb lines, the location of the house on the property, and its effect on the appearance and cohesiveness of the neighborhood. So
Yeah,
it's size, placement, and safety.
Yeah, the setback on Briery is important. Drive up and down Briery, and you will see there's a continuity there that should be retained. That's part of our job.
So I guess we're suggesting that you've listened, you've done a great job of that.
Yeah.
And now we need you to come back with perhaps let's call it an alternate plan, which addresses those issues for our consideration.
Understood, and we will take them to heart and see what we can do and what we can't do. Come back, presumably by then, we will have had our traffic expert have a chance to look at this report, to address the site distance, understanding of this interplay with everything. And the only other thing I would just want to mention is there is actually, and it may end up being changed depending on what happens to the design, there is a site easement in the southeast corner of the site that was proposed to limit development, putting anything in there that would block site distance. That may well change as to where it's located, but that was one of the things that was there when it was suggested just now. It is something we had included.
We don't meet again until September. So it'll be the second Wednesday in September.
That's very good, thank you.
I see neighbors are here. If someone would like to speak, please speak to the legal issues and keep your points brief. If you'd go to the mic and give us your name and address, so that we have that for the record. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Laura Help, and I frequent Pryor Road every day because I go to the journey with my dogs, walk them every morning. I also used to reside at 50 Priory Road, so I'm very familiar with the corner lot that you're speaking of. I do appreciate your points spot so that a person can pass and then you can go on. So besides all the other critical lines of sight, we also have that other added thing that makes it even more difficult to travel up and down. And they're just very narrow streets. And also the way that Lower Hilldale intersects with that little tank. Traffic also from the other side, not only just from Lower Hilldale on the east side, but also the west side can be critical when there's a delivery truck delivering oil, or when there's a storage truck that delivers something, or whatever, or somebody's moving. It's a very, very difficult corner to manipulate when there's other cars and trucks there. And for instance, if someone's building there, a construction site, think about what that can happen to make on that corner.
Thank you. Please.
My name is William Kelly. I live at 56 Priory Road, a couple of lots out from the proposed development. I haven't read the traffic study, I haven't seen it, I'm not a traffic expert, but I am an expert at driving and walking up and down Priory. I do it every day, multiple times. Besides the car traffic, it's a heavily traveled pedestrian way as well, up to During, as well as all the neighborhoods with multiple bus stops on Priory, including, I think, at that intersection. The issue, if we're going to have a structure there, is the cars coming up and down are going to have to be able to navigate around pedestrians who are going to be walking down the street, because there's no sidewalks in that neighborhood. So we have pedestrians in the street as well. And if the issue here is how much of a variance from what the community at large decided would be appropriate structure in that place, a process that we developed the zones after many years of studying and coming together as a community, a variation as currently proposed 15% or whatever the ultimate percentage comes, that's a variance just to make it more valuable to sell at the expense of the neighborhood safety and at the expense of the neighborhood character. So it's asking the rest of the neighborhood to sacrifice themselves so the developers can make more money on the pot. And that's not in the spirit of the zoning laws, and that's not in the spirit of the neighborhood. But I do look forward to seeing what the proposal is coming back and seeing how that impacts the traffic study, especially as it relates to pedestrians and children who use that road, who don't follow the rules, who don't walk on the edge of the whole thing, who chase balls in that neighborhood. And since it's a family neighborhood, I think that should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Santini, 104 Briarview Road, 6,200 square foot house. Mr. Kelly said half what I want to say, so I second everything you just said. On the other hand, I'd like to thank you for your words. Mr. Hoffman, fresh of breath air tonight. I just thought this thing was going to get rubber stamped, thank God it's not. When I go down a slightly different road here, as I understand it, and please somebody stop me if I'm wrong, this property is still owned by Mr. Kim, who's been trying to sell it for years. This sale is contingent on this variance, I believe,
Yes,
okay?
but that's not unusual.
Understood. But Mr. Kim created this self-hardship by selling off some of his property. I thought you could get a variance on something you self-created, a hardship that you self-created.
It's an issue.
And is he going around, back door here by letting the contractor,
It's a
you
big,
understand all this? You
Yeah.
know it, right?
Yeah, it's a factor to be considered, it's
Right.
not dispositive.
yeah.
I thought it was an
Right.
automatic no.
No. In zoning, it's really a balancing act, and there are very few things that are automatic. Yeses or nos.
All right, and you're doing a great job of balancing, thank you. Can we see this traffic study? How do we see it?
Is it on the website?
No.
I don't mean right now, is it gonna be out
I
online?
could have the village clerk post it.
Say again?
I'll talk to the village clerk about posting it somewhere.
Okay. for your time.
You're certainly welcome. Sir?
Thank you. My name is Larry Patsy. I live at 41 Hillville Road, 2 houses away from the big one. And I want to tell you that I really appreciate your concern with the potential problems in terms of line of sight, because I travel west on Hilldale towards Briary, and, there is a stop sign there now, but when I look up to my right, up the hill on Briary, seeing if there's any cars speeding down Briary, the line of sight now is really bad, and I can't imagine how putting a house there would improve things in terms of the danger that I face when I come out of there every morning, because you really have to be careful if there's nobody zooming down, because if you pull out on the Briary, you're in. So thank you for having that in your priorities here. And the second of all, I just want to point out that this is an application for a variance to the steep slope rule in Dobbs Ferry.
Yes.
And that rule was put into place in order to protect environmentally sensitive lands, preserve the village's natural resources, and promote the orderly development of land. And just to, I'll point out this, to put a house on that lot would not promote the orderly development of land. I think it would add to disorderly development. And frankly, what's being proposed here is to put a big house on a tiny lot, and it would really damage the character of the neighborhood. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wexstein, one more issue that I think is an easy issue, but it struck me in looking at the plans that the plans show the driveway coming right into the intersection. The planning board is the one that generally deals with driveways and access and things like that, but I believe it would be a better project if the driveway were to go toward into Hilldale to the extent possible, and not to or into Briary if the plans changed such that were the best way in. Because having a driveway come into an intersection that's already not the best, it seems seems like asking for more trouble.
What was can you remind us of, that actually got changed, Mr. Chairman, in an earlier plan, it was, it did come in more into.
That's the current plan?
This is an older plan, and I'm forgetting, someone covered it last time, why you ended up moving it. Can you remind us why that is, please?
Yeah, so we had originally put that there, and then based on traffic study that we had our consultants do, they said we could get better sightline if we shifted it over to be able to see further up, further north and south.
The house.
Oh, so it would be a sightline issue.
Well, you shifted that.
For the car coming
shifted
in and
the
out.
driveway so that
For the owner.
the orders leaving the house can see further up.
Oh,
the
right.
down.
People coming out of the driveway would have better views. Okay.
Shifted to that. And I just wanted to touch again briefly on the size of the home.
Yeah.
So it was originally a 30 by 40 box, 1,200 square feet, and it was 2 stories. That's where we got the 2,400 also from. So it's that 1,200, I guess, square feet from the house, the footprint, the coverage alone is like less than 25% of the overall lot size. The back is very small. So I just wanted to clarify where the size really came from.
Okay, well, it's something that's in keeping with the neighborhood, realizing that a smaller house goes on a smaller lot, and when you take the steep slopes into account, this is a 4,000 plus square foot lot and should carry a house, you know, appropriately sized to that.
I want to go back to the point the gentleman made from the audience about this, the steep slope. And I concur with you. I think it's really one of the most important issues in Dobbs Ferry. We have a lot of steep slopes, we have a lot of water runoff issues. So as we go forward with the plan, I mean, you know, we've sort of almost put to the side the issue that is, you've got a steep slope variance. You know, we've been talking about your siting, we've been talking about your placement, we've been talking about safety. We also need to hear how you're going to address the fact that you're building on a much smaller property than, like, you know, the reason of the variance itself and how you're going to treat the runoff issues, basically. You know, what are you going to do to make sure that you don't create a runoff problem for your neighbors because you have maybe less land for drainage because you've got less property?
My understanding is it's been engineered on the plans that are before you. It will also presumably be a site plan review issue as well.
Absolutely.
I understand the question.
Absolutely.
You know, we understand that is one of the environmental impacts that kind of always in your hand, that I think it is engineered already.
Thank you.
So-
It's just that sometimes when we've had properties where everything else was copacetic, we've denied a variance of 15% strictly on a steep slope basis.
Right.
You know, prima facie, it just doesn't happen because it's too much of a variance for the steep slope law. So it's another issue to make sure we address, so we don't ask you to do things twice.
At the risk of saying too much, because I will reserve, if you don't mind, to the comments, it doesn't mean I consent to them, but there's just a couple of brief things I want to say. Number one, this was a separate lot in 1988 when the steep slope density reduction went into effect. So I think saying this is the attempt, and the Kims owned it. So the current owner owned it back then, which is what made it non-conforming. Number two, the idea that this is about developer's profit is certainly in this statement of the facts of property law, because you have in the record our appraiser's indication that if you can't put a house on this, it only has a nominal value. And at the end of the day, without those variances, we can't put any house on it. We understand you want to see a reduced plan, but because the limiting factors under your ordinance are lot area and lot depth, those things we can't change. So if you turn down the variance, it has essentially zero value. So we're not talking about maximizing developer's profit, and you are talking about benefit versus detriment, as you know. The only final thing I'll say, and I should mention here because we go with the traffic consultant, I can't imagine how putting in stop signs and yield signs hurt the pedestrian situation that everyone is legitimately concerned about. In talking about Hilldale going west, just so you know, that the plan would be to turn the current stop sign to a yield sign and then put a stop sign where it actually touches Priory. So that's where, that's not my plan, that's what's shown in your consultant. So I'm not advocating or not advocating, but that would change the traffic pattern there from what's there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Susan Santini, I live at 104 Vernon Road. I support many things that the neighbors have said tonight. I just feel like this is an ask for a big variance. We've come to other meetings in the past year, and there are times when we made the comment about the request that we heard right before this. There was one of the smaller ones you've ever heard. This seems to me to be one of the bigger ones. So the variance with regard to the lot size, what's being proposed, even if it's scaled back, maybe a tiny house would work there. The tiny house movement might be great there. But it's too much. It's just too much. And I do appreciate the comments about the setback and so on, because a 12-foot setback is totally out of character with the neighborhood. And this is maybe a little too much to say, but people will come up Briarwood, in a way, that's like the kind of gateway, if you will, to that neighborhood. You come onto that street and you have a feeling of the neighborhood, and this is gonna be right in the middle of your face. So I appreciate everything that's been raised by the board tonight, by my fellow neighbors. Thank you.
With that, we'll move to close.
One other comment. I would just only ask the owner that, the developer that if you pursue a reconfiguration or resizing of the house, that the revised plans please have the line of the SSD as your other plans have had. Just make sure that that stays on there.
Yes.
Because it's an important point.
Yes. And I ask you to return out of that.
Yes.
Sorry.
They keep me honest. Move to adjourn. Second. All in favor.
We'll see you.
We'll see you next time, and and if you need more time, just tell us when you're ready so that the neighbors can get informed.
Understood. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.